All right, it is started.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Saugatuck Township Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We'll open the meeting. First, I'd like a roll call from all the members, and please tell us where you are, the city and county that you're in. I'll start with myself, Bill Rowe. I am here. I am in Douglas, Michigan right now. Al? Al, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, can you tell us where you're at, please?
Al, can you unmute *6, I believe?
Do you hear me now?
Yep,
there you go.
All right, I'm at my home, 3325 Coppice Court in Saugatuck Township.
Okay, and Catherine?
Yes, Catherine Dritzis. I'm here in Inverness, Florida.
Okay, and John Tuckerman?
Yep, John Tuckerman. I am here in Saugatuck.
Okay, and Patrick Stewart?
I'm in St. Augustine, Florida, St. Johns County.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next up, we will review and adopt the agenda. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, changes to the agenda?
Yes, the first line on the agenda gives the date of Tuesday, March 9th, 2020. It should read 2021.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Any other changes? If not, you'll see on your agenda there's a suggested motion there. I would entertain a motion if somebody would like to make that.
Move to approve the agenda as amended and to ratify the procedures for public participation and meeting conduct as described in the notice of public meeting via video conference. Please state your name, city, county, and where you are participating.
And do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. We'll need a roll call vote. When I call your name, please indicate either yay or nay. Al?
Yay.
Okay. Catherine?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Patrick?
Yay.
And I am a yay also, so all five. So the amended agenda is adopted. Next up, we've got a review of the minutes of the August 18, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any changes or recommendations on page 1? Okay. Anybody, any changes or anything on page 2? Okay. Do I have a motion for that? Motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, how about a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Motion.
Okay, so that was Al made the motion and Catherine seconded?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote again, and this is again to accept the minutes of the August 18, 2020 meeting as written. Al, yay or nay?
Yay.
Catherine?
Yay.
John?
Yay.
Patrick?
Yay.
And myself, yes. So that passes again unanimously. And then we've got our use variance for parcel 20-260-014-02, approximately located at 6369 Old Allegan and 63rd near Justamere Road, to vary use standards 40-746 12A to allow marijuana growing in the light industrial district when the operation is not connected to public sanitary sewer systems. Would the applicant like to, applicant or applicant's agent like to give us an overview? And
Yes. Can you hear me?
yes, thank you, Michael.
My name's Mike Young. I'm an attorney for Albee. And yeah, what we're looking for, like you said, is a variance for 40-746 to allow to hook up to a type of septic system instead of the public sewer. If I can show you the sewer map, oh, guess not. This, the sewer map shows that this property is roughly several miles away from the hookup. Did I lose you?
No, we can.
Oh, there you go. Okay. There was a study done, a proposed study for a sewer hookup, and that study came in close to $4 million in order for something to come out to the property. You know, this property is designated I-1, and according to the township table of uses, there are several uses that are currently allowed for this type of property and that have a real potential for wastewater contamination and watershed contamination. The table of uses show that there's agricultural use is acceptable for this zoning designation. However, there's nothing to regulate what you put on whatever you may want to grow, fertilizers, pesticides, Roundup, anything like that. So when you think of agricultural use, you think of chemical use and applied directly to the plant or soil. You turn on your TV and you can see that there's lots of problems with Roundup currently. Also, there's fertilizers, manure spread on agricultural lands. All these things do that eventually work their way into the watershed. When you get rains and runoff, they get into the ponds and streams. Other approved uses for this zoning are agricultural products that are grown on the land and can be sold, juice, cider, wine manufacturing, milk product, and milk products processing, all which have the potential to give a lot of wastewater and ground contamination. None of this happens with an indoor marijuana grow if done correctly. An indoor marijuana grow starts out with a reverse osmosis system. So even the water coming into the facility is essentially scrubbed clean before it's even used. So any waste that is runoff from the plants is collected and sent through a reclaim system. So any water that is used to water the plants that may have pesticides on it or may have fertilizer in it is gone through a reclaim system where it's again scrubbed clean and reused. Now, there will be minimal waste even with this. And what we're proposing with a septic tank is there's these biological barriers that kind of a filter that sits in the septic tank itself that collects anything that any of this microscopic stuff that may get by the reclaim system. These filters then are taken off and disposed of by a licensed disposal company. So anything that's coming out of this septic system and into the ground is, for one, is minimal. For two, it's close to potable water. So it's not hurting the environment. This is a much cheaper route to go than the $4 million sewer hookup, if that's even possible. If you look at in your packet, there is something from EGLE that suggests how the townships or what can be used for waste. And if you look at that, one of the pages talks about, can the wastewater go to a wastewater treatment plant? The answer to that was no. Can it go into a septic tank? No. Can it be poured on the ground? No. Can it be put in a pond? No. Can it go down the storm sewer? No. And in fact, the EGLE is saying there's nothing you can do with the wastewater. But that's where this septic system comes in, that it doesn't go into the ground. Nothing contaminant is going into the ground or into the sewer system or into the pond or anything. If it's done correctly and you use these reclaim systems, there's no dangerous wastewater. So to get around the EGLE recommendations is to go with something like this, with a reclaim system and the biohazard bags that collect anything that gets by it. There's townships around the area that allow growing but have no regulation for sewer hookups. One of them is Bangor, and all it talks about is using lawful methods to control the byproducts and waste. If you look at California law, some of the toughest environmental regulations in the United States, they say septic tanks and drain fields are an option for wastewater treatment. It's also currently legal to grow marijuana outside if one's licensed to grow for personal use. All that's required of this grower is to erect a placard, maybe on the top of the house or on top above the plants itself, with its license number, so that if a helicopter were to fly over, the police helicopter, they would see it's a licensed grow. These growers are not regulated as far as what goes in the ground or what goes in the water. Again, this indoor grow would be highly regulated and highly safe. It'd be safe. There would be no wastewater that would be a contaminant. The property meets all the other ordinance requirements for an indoor marijuana grow, all the setbacks, the berms, all that stuff. There's the only issue here is being able to hook up to the sewer. And like I said, the sewer option is not a viable option. This property is zoned I-1 light industrial. It's approved for marijuana production. However, the zoning makes it impossible for the owner to use the property as it would require because there's no sewer to hook up to. There's nothing forcing a neighboring property to grow whatever he wants. And there's nothing stopping him from growing whatever he wants on this property agricultural wise, which could be more damaging to the environment than something like this we're proposing. When reviewing other similarly situated properties, a variance is required for the property owner to take full use and enjoyment of his property. Current zoning limits the rights of the property owner to use and enjoy this property. Like I say, for example, neighboring properties, they're able to use their property to grow and sell produce. Those properties can use fertilizers, pesticides, etc. on their property without having to hook up to a sewer system. While the owner in this property is not allowed to grow a marijuana crop indoors unless he were to hook up to some sewer system that is not available to him. Further, the amount of pesticide or fertilizer in a grow like this is minuscule. Most of what they do, they try to use environmentally safe type pesticides and fertilizers. A variance would no way be a minimal detriment to adjacent property owners, let alone a substantial detriment. The marijuana industry is highly regulated. That promotes good neighbors. There can be no odors. Everything must be locked up and hidden away. You can't look at the property and say, oh, that's a marijuana grow, because the other ordinances require this to be a kind of a no-see marijuana grow. You don't know what's happening there, really. There's also no danger of pesticides or fertilizers harming adjacent properties, as the amounts are minimal. Plus, with the reclaim systems that are available, these biohazard bags that are available, it just makes the wastewater, like I say, close to potable. Marijuana operations have also been declared essential by our state government. So such an essential operation would not be detriment, but a positive or a bonus to the township. Because the marijuana is highly regulated and scrutinized, it is highly unlikely that there will be a need for the formulation of a general regulation other than what is in place currently for growing operations. So that's why we respectfully request that a variance would be allowed for this property using a septic system in conjunction with a reclaimed water system and biobarrier. Thank you.
Okay. Did Mr. Blumart want to speak as well, or just Mr. DeYoung?
Elby, did you want to say anything? I guess not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think it's baby best interest. I don't say anything because I don't talk too good.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to make sure you had the option. Okay. Lene, I think we'd like to hear from you, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I'm happy to kind of go through our analysis, and as we mentioned in the report, let me get that. The township adopted an ordinance regulating the growing of marijuana. And in that regulation, in section 40-74711A, there is a requirement that marijuana businesses that include growers in the light industrial district have to be connected to public water and sanitary sewer systems. I've included some of the previous minutes from planning commission meetings where this item was discussed. I wasn't at those meetings, so I am not claiming to know what the conversation was in that regard. But in addition to that utility hookup, there's also a requirement that any grow operation be 500 feet from a residential zone property or a residential use. And that mechanism is in place to protect the residents, but also as a way to kind of maybe limit the eligible properties for this type of activity. So when we're looking at variances, our zoning ordinance has 5 standards that must be met. And as you know, as ZBA members, each one of those standards is considered and voted upon, and that the outcome of that vote, you would require that each one of those standards be met to be granted the variance. Okay, so it's all of those standards. It's not 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4, it's each one. So the first one is that whether there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property. So we reviewed this property. We looked at the topographic map. We looked at adjacent uses. Based on that, I did not find anything exceptional or extraordinary related to the property itself, other than the fact that it is not served by public sewer. Public water is available, but there are hundreds of acres that are in this area also not served by public sewer. They're also zoned light industrial. So the variance should only be done if there is a unique or non-conforming pre-existing situation on the property. That's no fault of the owner. The owner, as mentioned by his agent, they prefer not to extend sewer because it is costly. And so in their mind, that is what makes this extraordinary. We also did provide that document from Eagle related to growing marijuana and the wastewater from marijuana cultivation. And I know I'm looking this way, but I have a second screen, so pardon me. But I think that in that Eagle memo, and again, I didn't write that memo, but that memo could be viewed as applying to residential types of growing practices, and perhaps not considering systems like Mr. DeYoung introduced today, right? So it might be that there are other commercial grade systems that can mitigate some of those effects. I'm not an engineer. We haven't been presented with any type of plan or kind of engineering documents or any kind of system that we would react to for treating the wastewater. The second standard is that that the variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right, similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zone district and in the vicinity, provided that the possibility of increased financial return shall not in and of itself be deemed to warrant the variance. So this parcel is vacant, public water is available. The other properties around it, many are also vacant. They all are encumbered by the same lack of sewer system. There are new light industrial uses that have been approved in this area. There have been site plans approved for offices, for a contractor business. There are other uses that can be considered on this property. And we have record of those being approved in the township. So there are other ways that this property can be enjoyed by the owner. In fact, the owner did receive approval to do storage buildings, right? Just adjacent to this property. So that was what we determined on that item. C, authorizing the variance will not be of a substantial detriment of adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purposes of the zoning ordinance or public health, safety, welfare, or morals. As I mentioned earlier, there is the 500-foot separation distance. I've had conversations with the applicant. I know that they do intend to locate any potential future grow operation away, 500 feet away from residential. There are state requirements that say the building has to be enclosed, it has to be locked. There's extensive security requirements. In terms of odor, our own ordinance has requirements about carbon filtration, about the, what is it called? Where the pressurization in the building is such that no air or odor from inside is allowed to be pushed outside. So it's like zero pressure in the building. There are a lot of rules and regulations, not only at the local level, but also the state level for this type of operation. So in terms of it being enclosed and adhering to those, you know, that would mitigate some of the impacts that we've been made aware of by letters we've received from neighbors. So, you know, it can certainly be done. Item D, that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent nature as to make reasonably practical the formation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. The applicant is not suggesting that the ordinance change. However, we should know that there are many parcels in the light industrial district in this area that would now be eligible or considered for a similar type of variance. I have received calls already about this. So, you know, if this were considered the property and the way it's situated and the utilities to it and what we've heard today, to me is that it's a very common property type, like from a use, from the fact that it's vacant, the vegetation, the topography. There are many things that are common related to this property that are similar to properties around it. So I feel like it could be a general application in this instance. So that is some of the analysis that we did, again, looking at topo maps, looking at land use maps, looking at zoning maps, analyzing previous building permit requests, analyzing previous site plan review requests. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the ZBA might have before you open it up for public comment.
Yeah, a couple of things, Lene. You know, as most of you know, I sit in the planning commission, and I was pretty involved in all of this as it was going through the planning process. And you know, the one thing that I wanted to point out is in looking at the grow operations, you know, we looked at doing it in the ag zones, the industrial zone, the commercial zone. We decided on the industrial zone to limit, you know, the number of possible grow operations. We also looked very closely at the water and sewer issue for two reasons. One, the concern, you know, over putting it into any kind of a septic system. And also knowing that parts of the industrial zone were not serviced by sewer, that helped us to further kind of limit the number of places that this could be done. I mean, that was intentional, you know. As far as the wastewater goes, I understand the arguments that Mr. DeYoung made, but we've already got 2 grow facilities operating in the township that are connected to public sewer, correct?
We have one that is built and licensed, and we've signed off. It has certificate of occupancy, and it's operational.
Okay.
That's called Culver LLC over on Hercules.
Right.
We have also approved 2 additional grow facilities that have not been issued certificate of occupancy yet. Both are in that same part of the township off of Just Barnes Drive. And they're in the process of building out the interior of the facilities.
So my question is, they're not having any issue connecting to sewer. The state,
No.
there's no issue with them using the public sewer. So that's really not an issue. Okay. And then, you know, just to reiterate what you said relative to, you know, this would not be a zoning change, but if we grant it for this property based on lack of sewer, how can we then say no to anybody else in that same zone anywhere in the township that doesn't have sewer? I think it opens the floodgates, you know, for anybody that wants in the I zone, you know, to do this. So those are just some of my comments. All commissioners, anybody, let me just go down the list, and when I call your name, if you've got some comments or questions, please fire away. If not, just let us know that you don't. Al, do you have any comments?
No, I concur with everything that you said and that Lene laid out, but I have one question on the 500-foot separation.
Right.
We had a similar incident come up with the previous owner when he wanted to build a growing facility. And at that time, the 500-foot separation was actually from property line to property line, correct? Didn't we determine that?
We did. It was actually, we redefined the ordinance to make that more specific. There was some question about gray area, but it has been defined as property line to property line.
Okay, good. I just wanted to ensure that. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Catherine, any comments, questions?
Yes, I do. I am not a chemist, so in talking about what the discharge would be for marijuana, I have no idea. I wish that the environmental protection had specified that these recommendations were for household use rather than general use, because that's something somewhat confusing. My other thought is I don't think the applicant is being denied the right to use his property only for his specific purpose, however, which he could facilitate, but for admittedly a rather astronomical amount of money. Other than that, Bill, I concur with what your comments were.
Okay. John, comments, questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Patrick, any comments or questions?
No, I concur with what you said. And this has been that's a very thorough package, so there are not a lot of questions. I think should this thing go any further, I think that we would need to have the engineering information about nitrogen and phosphorus, ammonia, the various things that can come from fertilizers in much more detail than we have now. That's the only point I have to make.
Okay. And I just want to state for the record that we did receive 2 letters via email to the township from local residents, and both of those were opposed to approving this.
Bill,
do we-
we also, sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Because you're talking about this though, we also, one just came in at 3:30 today from our Art Hofstetter, also opposing the request. So in addition to, and I'll just give the names so they're in the record, but we have a letter from Mike Doucette, a resident of Pheasant Woods, and then the Garrett Sturris on Lake Ridge Drive, in addition to the one I just mentioned. Okay.
All right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment at this point?
Mr. Chairman, so if anyone would like to speak, please use the reaction button, and that you can raise your hand. And we do have one person so far with their hand raised. And if you want, Mr. Chairman, I can call on that person and then I can start the timer for the 3 minutes.
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. So the first one is iPad 62 Pat. iPad 62 Pat, would you like to speak during public comment?
They're muted right now.
I'm asking to unmute. You can do *6.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I put the hand up by mistake. No comment here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that we have some other people that maybe, Rock, would you like to speak? Rock, hi, I see your.
Yes, thank you. First off, Rock Rusatz, Lower Marlane property owner adjacent to property. First off, I want to thank everyone on the board for your time and effort you put into this. I also want to thank the points that both Lene and Bill, you guys made some great points there. Thank you for that. I'd like to voice my opposition to this as well. Just some of the points that Mr. Young made, I tend to disagree with. One specifically is when he mentioned Bangor as allowing grow facilities such as this. I don't know if you've been to Bangor recently. It's not an area that I want my town to become. We're trying to raise a family here, and we moved here because of the wonderful community, and we'd like to keep it as such. I feel there are enough grow areas, and this is a new enough venture that I think we should just kind of let things play out for a while before we trade everything to it, just as Bill had mentioned earlier.
This is Roxley Jessica. One of the other concerns that we have is as we see the property on the corner of 63rd, increased traffic, looking at issues with traffic lights that would have to come into play. That entire, if this property does get rezoned, how that would open up all the other properties similarly to more and more of this type of venture. We're seeing what was a wooded, quiet neighborhood with some light industrial. We're just seeing a lot of changes that really concern us.
Thank you.
Thank you. You did cut in and out a little bit, but we did hear about your concern related to traffic and congestion. Steve Raymond, Steve, would you like to speak on this item?
I would defer to Todd Redmond.
Hello, this is Todd Redmond.
Yes, go ahead, Todd.
We are one of the adjacent properties, and we would like to concur with LB in his variance. I wanted to remind the board of just how important marijuana was in Saugatuck Township, being one of the places that had the highest margin of victory under the marijuana laws. It's obvious that Saugatuck Township is drawing these people to it because this is an area that kind of asked for it. And that's one of the things that makes Saugatuck so open and wonderful. And because of that, this is a wonderful opportunity because we're talking about state regulated things that are run at the highest of standards by the best of people. We're talking about jobs that require educations and people moving into the area that'll be good for this area. So we would support this in any way we could.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have someone with their hand raised. iPhone.
Hi, yes. Sorry about that. I didn't sign in. My name is Palmer White. I'm a property owner on Lorimar Lane, which is adjacent. I do understand the previous person's point about how we voted to allow marijuana in our area. I don't view it as an evil thing, but personally, this and the storage development that's already going in on that corner are about 100 feet from where my kids are getting dropped off by the bus during the school year. Number one, I'm opposed to the increased traffic that's going to come to that area. Number two, I'm opposed to just the general development and what it's done already to the landscape of our area and our community. That's a beautiful place to live, and it's already ugly now based on what's happened. I think that if this person, I would never try to thwart somebody pursuing their living in this country. But I think if this person wants to do what they're planning to do, then they need to do it the way the town has it set up, and they need to pay to hook up to our sewer. And that's all I got.
Anyone else? Lene, are you seeing anyone with a hand up?
I am not seeing anyone else with a hand up. Linda, I see that you're not muted. Linda, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I would. I was trying to find where I find my hand and I couldn't, but I'd be interested in knowing a little more about how this reclaim system works, because this is a very intense growing operation and they're growing the plants in water. This is hydroponics. So everything that they're putting on these plants is going into that water. And I'm just a little concerned about that, particularly if other people can also do that with a septic. I really am worried about our groundwater. Another thing I'm concerned about is the security outdoor lights that might take place. Has anyone considered that? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Linda.
Okay. Yeah, because you know, there are different kinds of, I mean, I'm sure they're going to have to be putting a lot of fencing up, and lighting, and that's going to be on all night. And I think we should consider, if they do go ahead with this, what kind of lighting are they going to have out there? Another thing that concerns me is that I know several years ago, out in Manlius Township, there was a facility that blew up. I'm not sure why that happened, but it was felt for a mile around. And I don't know if they're going to be having a lot of explosives in there along with their fertilizers, but that's a concern too. I'd really like to know how this reclaim system works, and what kind of system do they have to basically grow these plants in water. So to me, there's a lot of unanswered questions, and I'm not comfortable with having this go in here. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't see anyone else who has unmuted themselves or turned
Okay.
on their camera or raised their hands.
Okay. Well, I think we'll close the public comment period. And
Excuse me, I have one comment to make, Al Kersenik.
okay, Al, we're going to discuss this as a board. This is public comment right now, so.
I know it's on public comment. I was just doing a count, and Lene, I count on public comment 7 no's, 3 being email, and 1 yes. So I just want to put that out there for the record.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to close the public.
You forgot my vote.
Okay. I'm going to close the public comment now, and we will discuss this as a board, and then we will go through and vote on the 4 items. Just as a matter of record, I know some of you are new or newish, and I just want everybody to understand, as Lene mentioned earlier, when we go through these, the 4 items, A, B, C, and D, a majority, whatever way the majority votes. So in other words, if a majority votes yes on each item, then it is approved. If a majority votes no on any one item, then it is denied. Is that not correct, Lene?
Yes, sir, that's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a roll call vote on each of the 4 items, and it's a little counterintuitive. If your intention is to approve it, you would vote yes. If your intention is not to approve it, you would vote no. And again, if any one of those items, 3 or more of us vote no, it's not passed. If 3 or more of us vote yes on all 4, then it would be approved. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to just speak up if you, any board members. No? Well, I'm going to read each of the 4, and then I'm going to do a roll call vote and ask for your vote. So A is, there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to their property in question as to the intended use of the same that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone district. Al, how would you vote on that?
No.
Okay. Catherine, your vote?
No.
John, your vote?
Yes.
And Patrick, your vote?
No.
And Roe is a no. On B, it is that such a variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right, similar to that possessed by other properties in the same zone district and in the vicinity, provided that the possibility of increased financial return shall not in and of itself be deemed to warrant the variance. Al, your vote?
No.
Catherine, your vote?
No.
John, your vote?
Yes.
Patrick, your vote?
No.
And Roe is a no. C, the authorizing of such a variance will not be of substantial detriment of adjacent property and will not materially impair the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance or the public health, welfare, or safety or morals. Al, your vote?
No.
Catherine?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Patrick?
No.
And Roe is a yes. D, that the condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of the said property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or reoccurrent a nature as to make reasonably practical the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Al, your vote?
No.
Catherine, your vote?
No.
John, your vote?
No.
And Patrick, your vote?
No.
And Roe is a no. So on A, we've got 4 no's. On B, we've got 4 no's. On C, we have got 2 no's and 3 yeses. And on D, we have all no's. So the variance request is not approved. Lene, we don't need a vote or anything beyond that, do we?
Mr. Chairman, I think it would be good for there to be a motion that would kind of refer back to the standards and kind of the rationale, you know, the A through D, and
Okay.
have a vote of the board.
Okay. Would anybody like to put forth such a motion?
I make a motion that the voting be accepted as validated by Bill.
Would you like to make a motion that relates back to the request for the variance and the validation of the votes?
Yes. Make a motion that reflects back to the variance and the validation of the vote.
So to decline the application, that's correct?
That's correct. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you mind just restating that, Al?
I'm sorry, say again?
Could you just restate all of that together for your motion, please?
Okay. I make a motion that reflects back to the variance and that the voting was confirmed and the motion was denied. The variance was denied.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
That's Catherine seconded?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor of the motion to deny, Al?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
And Roe is a yes. The motion is denied. Or I mean, excuse me, the variance is denied. The motion is passed unanimously. Okay. Is there any other public comment or correspondence from anybody? Any hands up anywhere?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay. I guess I would just note for the record that it does say that our next meeting is to be determined, but we do have a meeting scheduled for the 23rd of this month, correct, Lene?
That is correct. We have a board meeting, Board of Appeals meeting to consider the expansion of a legal non-conforming use.
Okay, and that's on the 23rd of this month.
Correct, at 4 o'clock.
Okay. And, okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Bill,
I motion that we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
Okay, Catherine, do I hear a second?
I second it.
And Al seconds. Okay, again, a roll call. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting? Al?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
And Roe is a yes. We are adjourned until the 23rd. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Bill and Renee.
Thank you.
I never did get my